And the other day, me and the kid went out to grab something to eat, and she asked me, she was talking about John Lennon, because they had done oral reports in her class, and she had done Sacagawea, and one of her friends did John Lennon. And she's like, John Lennon was killed. You know, kids always tell you shit like, I'm like, duh, I know. You know, like she's always trying to tell you something you don't know. John Lennon was killed by a gun. I was like, yeah, that's right. He was murdered right in front of his house, which was an apartment where they shot Rosemary's Baby. She's like, what's that? I'm like, it's an awesome movie. But she was just like, did they catch that man? And I said, they did catch that man. And she said, why'd he do it? And I said, he did it because ultimately he wanted to be famous. He wanted to be the guy. He wanted people to remember his name because he was the guy that killed John Lennon. I said, and there's a bunch of other theories that he was, well, obviously he was crazy. They had no value for him in life. But some people thought that he thought he was John Lennon. He's disturbed man. But regardless, ultimately he killed him because he wanted to be remembered. Yeah. And she was like, what was his name? And I had to think for a minute because initially I wanted to say, oh, it was John Hinckley. But that's the dude that shot Reagan. Yeah. So I had to think for a while. And then I was like, oh, it's Mark David Chapman. And she was like, is he in jail? And I was like, he is in jail. He's in jail for life. She's like, so if you kill somebody, you go to jail? I was like, yeah, you could, or they could give you the death penalty. She's like, what's that? And I was like, death penalty is basically if you kill somebody, you get killed eventually. The state government kills you. Mm-hmm. And she's like, how? And I was like, it's so weird. Like, I totally spaced, and I was just like, you know, firing squad. Like, I went back to like the 30s or 40s. I was like, firing squad, and she's like, what? And I was like, well, that's where a bunch of people line up with guns and shoot you. And the kid's got a real, like, she's terrified of guns, notion of guns. If a gun comes out in a movie, she freaks out. It's so weird because I'm sitting there like, what are you kidding me? It's a gun. But you realize we've been inured to the. Yeah. I mean, number one, I'm 37, but number two, it's just like I was watching guns in movies from a young age. Yeah. To her, the notion of something that you could point at somebody and pull a trigger and shoot them is horrifying. Yeah. And to me, I'm like, there are way scarier fucking things than that. Like that goddamn spider that's in the shower. More likely you'll get bit by a spider and shot by that gun. So I was like, well, there's also, you could be electrocuted in the electric chair. And then she goes, they should give you a pill that just makes you go to sleep. And then I was like, oh, well, they kind of do. There's a lethal injection. And I was explaining lethal injection to her. And she didn't seem to be pro-death penalty at first. Yeah. And she was like, I don't think I like that. And I was like, I'm very pro-death penalty. I think if you take a life, you should lose your life. And I said, Mom's very pro-death penalty, too. And she's like, well, if they killed an elephant, then yes. So my kid came up with a variation of the death penalty where if you kill an elephant, you lose your life. So she's all about, what do they call them? She has no regard for human life, Scott, is what I'm saying.
What do they call the
a chubby chaser? She likes elephants.
Yeah. No, they're called poachers.
Yeah, she would like to see all poachers brought down.
Poachers should be killed.
Anybody fucks with an animal. She's 8 years old. Anyone fucks with an animal deserves know what's coming to them and shit. I yelled at Shecky this morning because Shecky growled at Mulder for eating his own food, and she felt like it should have been her food. And little dog growled at the big dog, but it was a pretty fierce growl. Jen ushered her out of the kitchen. We closed the kitchen door, and you could see through the kitchen door it's glass. So I was banging on the door going, naughty! And the kids started crying. She's just like, nobody likes Shecky. I was like, I love Shecky, but if she's being bad,
have to discipline.
You got to discipline. We do it to you. We love you, but if you're bad, we yell at you or something like that, which rarely ever happens. But she gets real out of sorts about hurting animals. Kid's got a big heart, man. Goofy big heart. I kind of dig it. She's very, and it's weird because there are things that I never taught her, and I know Jen never taught her, but she has that are very similar to us, more to me than to Jen in most cases. I was a real big stuffed animal freak when I was younger. Yeah, and kind of imbued each with a sense of anthropomorphism. They're all alive in their own way. She won't let you call them stuffed animals. You have to call them fluffed animals because stuffed is
taxidermy?
Well, she doesn't even know what that is. But stuff to her is just, she gets mad if you say stuff. She's like, you set up. So we're at the high tea, and she's setting up Yay the elephant and the big-headed bear on a chair next to her and shit, because they're going to enjoy the tea party as well. And I was just like, it was just evil, but I was like, I'm going to fuck with the kid's head. And I was like, help me, help us. And she's like, what's that? And I was just like, that's the shark and the bear who are stuck in the luggage. And she immediately freaked out. She's like, get them out. Get them out. And I was like, no, they're fine. She's like, get them out. And I had to take them out so she could put them on the chair next to her. It kills me, though. She's very like, it reminds me of me when I was a kid and shit. She's very pro-animal. Couldn't give a fuck about you.
About me now.
No. If you were
If
hanging
I was
from a
trapped
cliff.
in the suitcase.
Yeah. I was like, she was like, what's that? I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Scott Mosier. She's like, well, tell him to shut up.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
have
enjoy
high
tea.
tea with my fluffed animals. I'm all about the adventure. I like to do that.
You're like the kids in bed knobs and broomsticks.
I am.
Not really, because they weren't really doing it to go on an adventure. Those kids were doing it to stop a war, weren't they?
Well, I have an imaginary war.
You're like, there's always a war going on somewhere. Those kids wanted to get out of... Did they even want to get out of England? Basically, they were displaced children. Mm-hmm. And their parents were killed in the war? Would they ever
God,
say?
I have no memory.
And then they wound up with Angela Lansbury, who was a novice witch.
Yes.
And she... they caught her doing some magic.
Yeah.
Reanimating something.
And they're like, oi.
Pretty much. Do it. What did they say?
I can't remember that part.
Oi, witch. We're going to tell on you.
Take us to the Isle of the Bumby.
Yes. Well, what they did was they caught her doing something. She's like, please don't tell. I'll suck your dick.
They're like, right on.
Go on it, love.
That's the knob in bed knob.
They caught her and she said, don't tell. I'm trying to do something that'll end the war. And they were like, all right, well, we got to make a deal.
Yeah.
And she
you gotta,
said,
take us with you.
She said, I'll give you your own magical something. And so they chose like a knob off the bed in the bedroom where they were staying in her house. Which if I was her, I'd be like, shouldn't it be something you own? Like, if you take my bed knob, that's mine. It's going to look retarded. And so she gave it magic.
Movie over.
Yeah, pretty much.
Get out. Get out.
Credits.
Get out.
She imbued this bed knob with magical powers.
Yeah.
And then the little boy, Paul, was the only one that could make it fucking work.
Yeah.
It's Charlie, Paul, and the girl whose name
I don't remember her
escapes
name.
me.
I just remember there's another line where at some point they were going, travel light, that's us.
Yes, that's Charlie, the older brother. Where he's like, we don't have a lot of time for Philly things. Travel light, that's us. Genius line. And then, and so at one point they're looking for the Star of Astaroth, which she needs for the spell. And they see it in a picture book. As being worn by the king, who's a lion on the island of Nabumbu, which is all animals. Yeah, and so they, that's when the fucking line happens. They all get on the bed, and she's like, "Paul, do you do the honors?" And then Paul says,
"Bed, take us to the Isle of Nabumbu."
Yes, and then the bed vibrates and fucking
sparks. And
they do a weird, bad fucking
'60s
fade, and then they do the weird. Kind of like we're traveling through space and time,
shaking the bed.
Yeah, and they got a fan blowing.
And there's a soccer game, I think, when they get there.
Well, first they wind up underwater, and somehow they're all able to breathe, which is when the movie kind of loses me, where I'm like, this is horse shit. There's some shit. I will go with a retarded movie, or I'll go with stuff where you have to suspend the window of belief, disbelief, whatever. But like some shit I have a real hard time with. Like
magic has its limits.
Yeah, like I'm all for like the traveling bed and shit, but once like it just breaks the physical laws of our universe if they're underwater and they're fine.
But they're on a magic bed.
They were off the magic bed underwater.
Oh.
That's where they're swimming around. They're fucking singing like beautiful briny sea. They're singing. They're not even like gasping for air or anything like that. But I just watched fucking the Raiders movies again in preparation for Shucky! Little jerk off. In preparation for the new Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
And the first one holds up like crazy. I skipped 2 because I'm afraid it's going to be a real tough watch. And I went to 3. And 3, I'm with 3 all the way up to the moment they get into the fucking cavern.
Yeah.
And there's a fucking 800-year-old guy sitting there.
And now he's just like, right.
Yeah. He's like, take us to the Isle of Nabumbu.
It's him. It's not Nabumbu.
Hey, drop me off somewhere between London and Nabumbu.
You've seen some people on a bed. protecting these cops. Bullshit.
Travel light, that was me. Travel old now. He's just they run into the old knight. It kills me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll even go with like Raiders of the Lost Ark where their faces get melted. That's just the wrath of God. But like the old knight in the fucking,
It's just like choose wisely.
yeah, that's what I'm like. Come on, dude. That scene totally would have worked without some old fucker sitting in the room.
Yeah.
That's where the movie falls apart for me. But anyway, so they're underwater, and then they wind up getting
pissed.
hooked. I'm pissed. That's what I'm like. God damn it. Then they get hooked. The bed gets hooked, and they all get onto bed, and it rushes up, and they're caught by this bear wearing a shirt.
Yeah.
And the movie gets back on track. And I can
All
believe
of a
it
sudden
again.
It's plausible.
I understand.
He's wearing a shirt.
He's got clothes on. He's like people.